Welcome to Music Tech Explained, the visual approach. My name is Edgar Rothermich, author of the best-selling book series Graphically Enhanced Manuals. In this video, I will show the exciting new features of this massive Logic Pro 10 update 10.5. There's so much stuff to cover, so let's dive right into it. I also released a new book, Logic Pro 10 What's New in 10.5, available on my website logicprogem.com. On 230 pages, I provide more detailed information about the various features and changes that I didn't have time for in this video. I explain all that with diagrams and graphics that you won't find anywhere else. Live loops, the new feature in Logic Pro 10 10.5. This might be the biggest addition because what we have now is this, Ableton Live in Logic Pro 10. It is a similar workflow, but Apple took it to the next level and there's a lot of details that makes it really amazing. First of all, the graphics. As you can see here, you can see the different waveforms. You can see the MIDI events either in circular form or if you are turn loops off, it's in linear form. So you can see exactly what happens and when. So you have a great overview of visual representation of what's going on while you were playing. The controls are similar. You can play individual cells by firing them up, or you have the scenes button down here. You can play the complete scene, all the cells in a specific row, in a specific column. So the integration with the current workflow is this. You have two new buttons up here. You can show either the workspace with the track lanes and the regions, or you can show the live loops, or you can show both. So you have on the left side the live loops, on the right side you have the workspace with the track lanes and the regions, and each row, regardless if it's the live loops or the track lane, run through the same track, what you see here on the track header. Which one is actually playing depends on this traffic cop called the divider column in the center. So you see that little arrow. Either you can switch everything, play the workspace, or click the left arrow, play the live loops on the left side. Or you can mix and match. For example, you play everything here, or the arrows point to the left lane, to the left side, so you play the live loops. And if I want to play the regions on the right side, so you set that for that track, so it plays the track lanes instead of the live loops. So you can mix and match the different areas. And so now this one here is playing from the live loops, and now the track lane with the region, that track playing the workspace. And you can mix and match and doing the whole thing during the live performance, and depending on the controls that you use, you can add the remix effect to get even more creative in your live performance. And so on. There's a lot of detail. Can't go into all the individual controls. It is getting very deep. So you have to get yourself used to all the different blinking cursor and different graphics that you see, because everything has information to it. When does it start? When does it stop? And which one is in QE mode? And here also on the right side, you see where it's parked and the different thing. So there's a lot of feedback you have to pay attention to be the most creative when you play your live loops. The most important thing is that you can edit those, because for example, if you, like here's a region, so you can track the region, You can drag it from the left to the right. You can drag it from the live loops over to the workspace wherever you want to play. For example, this one, now you set it to the left side. So now the same region what played before in the workspace now is part of the live loops, as you can see here. But the important part is that each cell that you see here is not only one region. If you double click on a cell, you actually open the cell editor. And it is, for example, here the piano roll editor, but you don't see the piano roll editor tab. So it's similar like the individual editor, but it's the same user interface. If you double click on an audio interface, on an audio cell, you see the audio track editor, but no tabs. So can you select the audio file editor? Yes, you can, because it is hidden down there, and you can set the transient, you can set all that. And here you have your full audio file editor, and not even that. You can also go into Smart Tempo Editor, which right now that cannot do because it's an Apple loop. So you have the whole editing feature, so you can select that, go into the piano roll editor, and here you can edit that specific cell. You can add additional cells to it, or look at that, you can add the automation to it. So you can automate individual regions that are added to individual cells. So it goes extremely deep with the editing feature, not just one-to-one, so one region into one cell. But wait, there's even more, much more stuff in there. How about you have a drum track? If you move the cursor over it, then you can see the yellow plus sign. That means you can add a drum region. A drummer region into a cell on a drummer track. And as you can see, it plays the drummer region. You can open the drummer editor and edit the drummer region inside the cell. Or you can have a drummer region on the workspace and just drag it over. Or how about that? You have a pattern region in the workspace and you drag it over. And now you have a pattern region inside the cell in the live loops. And double-clicking on that pattern region inside the cell opens the step sequencer where you can edit that. And one more thing, how about this one? You have a red dot, which is a record button. That means you can record directly into a cell, either on a audio track or on a MIDI track. So you can see a little countdown. So you just press on that cell with that red button. Look at the graphic. You see the MIDI notes creating while you play. Press stop and here's your MIDI stuff, all your MIDI notes. You double click it and there is your piano roll editor and you can edit that stuff right away. As I said, extremely deep. It's amazing what stuff you can do with the live loops. Again, read all the details. I'm getting really detailed in the manual to explain all the stuff so you don't get too frustrated of clicking around and something different happens. Especially be really aware of what's happening with the timeline, because the start and stop feature and what is playing and what is stopping and the relation between the live loops, which don't have a specific timeline because they're just looping, and the workspace, which follows a specific timeline with a playhead, you have to make sure that you understand that concept to know what is playing when and how do they play together. So that's a very, very quick run through and overview what's available there. read up all the details. It's an amazing, exciting new features, one of the many in Logic Pro 10.5. The next new feature is the brand new step sequencer. But what we have here in Logic is a basic step sequencer on steroids, because the Logic team took it to completely another new level. First of all, we have a new type of region, the pattern region. Because if you start with a step sequencer, the first thing you have to do, you have to create a pattern region. You right-click on the track lane of a software instrument track and select Create Pattern Region. And then what you see here is a pattern region. And if you double-click it, then the editor pane opens up below. And you can see here the new addition, the step sequencer. You have the piano roll, score, smart tempo. And what's missing is the step editor. So the step editor is still available in Logic, but its tab has been removed here, and now you have instead the step sequencer. So the concept is similar to the drummer region, because you don't record directly into the region because you edit it, similar to the drummer region. And same thing with the drummer region. So you select the region, in that case the pattern region, and then the editor opens up, which is the step sequencer editor. And here you can do all your step sequencer editing. I have one already loaded here. That's basically what it is. So you have a user interface for editing the step sequencer. And here on the pattern region, you actually see the individual steps. The interface is extremely deep. If you know, and if you're familiar with step sequencer, you might get away with it by clicking around, but there's a lot of little details. So save your frustration and read up how it's used and all the details of different controls to really use it to all its capability. A quick overview of the user interface. So you have on the left, you have the header, the row header. Each row has the steps. You have a maximum of 64 steps per pattern. And in each row, you have the steps, as I said, and you can open a row and you have the individual parameter for each step. So if you have a step right here, you open the row and you can change the velocity, the gate, the time, all the different parameters for each individual step. And you can right-click on here, so you see the different parameters, the different attributes that are available. So with these two buttons on top, you can switch what you can see, the view on the main interface. Either you have step on off, that means now you can just program which step to play in each row, just by clicking and toggle it on and off, or you can select any of the attributes, just clicking on the second button and just choose which attribute to show, and then you can directly edit them. Very nice interface, all for the different attributes what you have available. So you can choose either or what to see on the main lane, or you can, for each row, you can open up the row and then you can select to show different attributes, and you can see everything at the same time, so you can open them all up. So you have a big overview, especially if you get very complex in your setting. Let's close all that. Here you have two buttons. One is the pattern browser. So there are a lot of patterns that come with the step sequences, so you don't have to start programming. You can mess around and select drum related patterns, melodic, bass, template, all the different kind of stuff. And if you click on the I button, that is the inspector, and that shows you the different levels of the step sequencer. So basically you have three levels: pattern, row, step. With the pattern, you determine all the parameters that affect the whole pattern that you program. The row, you can select individual rows and set parameters for that specific row. And then you can go as fine as each individual step. So you just select the step, and you can, each individual step you can set here on the inspector. You can really edit all that stuff here instead of doing it graphically on that side. It gets very deep with a lot of parameters, and especially if you just look at the step rate. Here with the step rate, you can set a different step rate for the pattern, then override that to set an individual step rate for each row. And even in each row, you can set the step rate differently for each individual step. And then, of course, you can define backwards, forwards. You can have different parameters. So it gets extremely complex if you dive in, which is a little bit frightening at the beginning. But again, read up all on the instructions so you know the potential, what you can do with this step sequencer. And especially if you select here, you see one parameter called automation. That means you cannot only use a step sequencer for individual notes, triggering a synthesizer or a drum machine. You can use the step sequencer for automation. That means you can program individual step instead of a parameter for C1, C2, D1. You select a specific control, an automation control, and then all the steps when to play that or when to send that automation control and with what parameters, it's all controlled with a step sequencer. So a huge area for creativity and experimentation. So that goes way beyond the basic step sequencer what you have available in other programs or in hardware sequencer, hardware step sequencers. That is the quick run-through overview. So for example, this is a melodic based that I messed around with. Here is step sequencer for drum related. You see it automatically, so it uses the drum machine designer and all the different rows that are assigned to a specific pad in that drum machine designer is color coded. So very nice user interface. You get in and can edit that stuff very quickly. You have different icons here. So again, a lot of details. You can just start experimenting or programming, and yeah, a lot of fun. And it has a lot of different features that you might not find in other ways, in other step sequencer. For example, here it's a drum pattern with chance attribute. Chance means what's the probability. So you can see all the steps are playing all the time, but you see by the arrow, by the grid, you can add a specific probability. So 100% it's playing all the time, and the lower the percentage value is, the less likely is it that it plays that specific step, which means that specific kick or snare or clap. That's a very fast, very quick run through the new step sequencer in Logic Pro 10.5. So here's a quick run through about the Quick Sampler. Quick Sampler is the new software plugin instrument. It is right here, Quick Sampler single sample. A reminder that you can load only one single sample into that plugin. And here's how it looks like. Very simple interface. That's all the pages you can see. On the top, that's where you enter drag in the sample. You have two options, original, that's pretty much how it is, and optimized. It's doing some, as you can see, optimized tuning, loudness search. It's doing some clever things to doing the import. You put it in, and then you can see the waveform at the top. You have three modes. You have classic mode. That means you have available a loop to choose from, one shot basically for drums, loops, it just play through, no loop option. Then you have slice mode, which is very handy if you want to export that later into a region and play it with a drum sampler. So these are the three modes, classic, one shot, slice, and you have a fourth one that is where you can actually record on the fly any kind of samples right away from your microphone or from whatever input you have selected on your audio interface. Then here you have a an area where you see all the details wherever you put the mouse cursor over it. And at the bottom, you have the sound controls. Let's go over the top first in classic mode. The root note, here you can see minus 46 cents. So Logic tuned that. That was the option. Remember, when you choose that one, it says or the optimized tuning. So it detects if the tuning is a little bit off and tunes that for you. So you have forward, reverse, how you want to play back. You have the different loop option, forward, reverse, alternate, back and forth, and stop loop on key release. The nice little interface, as you can see, it is super simple and very fun to adjust. You have a couple of markers. You have the sample start, you drag it here. You have the sample end, you have the fade out, you have the fade in. You can drag the loop start and loop end very easily here. And down there, there's the marker where you can create the crossfade. And you can see here in that area, wherever you drag a marker, you see the details down there, and then they disappear wherever you drag it over. If you double click on it, then that area stays constant, so you can drag anything else, and you still see the parameters of that marker that you double clicked on it. So you can get rid of that, just click on here. Then you have a couple of other markers, all the stuff I explain in the book, where you can, for example, here select the whole loop start, loop end, and drag that left and right. Very quick and easy to maneuver all that stuff. And here is another cool feature in the Quick Sampler, which is also available in the sampler, the new EXS24. And that is that button down here, the Flex button. What does it do in a sampler? Here we go. So if I have a sample like an orchestral hit, I play it back in the original root key, then it plays back in the original tempo, the original pitch. If I play instead of a C3, if I play a G3, the sample will be transposed, but at the same time it plays back faster. That's the reason, because the tempo and the pitch are related. If I want to pitch a sample up, I play it faster, but that means the tempo will be increased. The same way if I pitch it down, then the tempo is slower. So that is pretty much useless if you want to use it in a musical context. If it's just a simple hit, that works. But if it's a phrase like this, the phrase has a tempo in it. So if that is the wrong key and I needed a fifth higher, the sampler will transpose it, but it speeds up the tempo, so it doesn't work properly in that setting, in that project. That's where the Flex button comes in. And here's the difference. I play in the original key. Now I play the G3. It will transpose the sample but keeps the same tempo. So no matter what key I'm playing, it will transpose up and down without changing the tempo, so the integrity of the phrase will be intact, so I can use it in the musical context of your project. The same is true if you use any kind of beat in original tempo. If Flex is disabled, if I play it higher, see now it plays G3, C3, it pitches it up, but it changes the tempo. That is not good because you want to maintain the tempo. So I enable Flex, original key, I can pitch it up. It pitches up the sample, but it keeps the tempo. Flex enabled, Flex disabled. If Flex is enabled, then I also can enable the follow tempo. That means it keeps that pitch, what I have, whatever I play back with that sample, and now it looks for the tempo in my project. So right now it is 120. If I enable follow tempo and I change the tempo to 94, it follows the tempo whatever I have in the project, and it keeps the pitch. If I disable that, then you have a third option here. You can just change the speed with a factor by 2, 4, 8, or half, fourth, or an eighth. The effect is this, so I have flex enabled. Speed, double speed, or half speed. One cool thing I want to point out, here you have the zoom, the auto zoom feature. The vertical auto zoom feature, look what happened. If it's off and then you zoom in, if the volume and the level is really low, you don't see much, it's just a line. But if you enable the auto zoom, look what happened now. No matter which segment you zoom in that sample, it always adjusts the visual level of that sample to always have the maximum range from 0 to top and to positive and negative. So you see, because if you want to zoom in to set a specific start and stop, whatever, you always have the maximum solution. Don't have to guess where the individual part of that sample is. Small little details, same thing here, so you can zoom in vertical, horizontally. Gear button, tons of various options you can choose from. That one we covered already. And here, so you can, in the sound module, very quickly tune it, glide, envelope. These are basic synth features. Resonance, cutoff, pan, left, right, all that fun stuff. And also in the LFO, you have two LFOs, 1 and 2. You have a modulation matrix, source, target. You select here from the pop-up menus 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice little detail here for the LFO. You can select between bipolar and unipolar, depending on what waveform you choose from for various effects. Also here, source, target modulation, and the VIA controller. All that stuff I explain in all the details in the book, so I'm just rushing through very quick here. One little detail is not only can you drag samples directly from your finder, but you can also drag regions. For example, I have here an audio region, and you drag that over here, and you have that sampled right away. Very quick and easy, get that stuff done. And a couple of features here. Oh yeah, and one thing, very nice. If you have a drum loop and you use a slice mode, which by the way here you can see, you can edit that stuff, double click, delete slices or add new slices, pretty much like transients. Very super simple to edit. And here one thing I want to point out, create drum machine designer track. What that means is it takes that sample, creates a drum machine designer with that sample of all these individual slices. For each slice will create a new pad in that drum machine designer. And not only that, it creates a MIDI region with these individual MIDI nodes to trigger these individual pads. So the only thing we have to do is select that command here. And then it's creating drum machine designer. It's doing something magic in the background. Drum roll, and we are done. And now you can see it creates this individual slices and creates a drum machine designer track. And you can see here, let me close that. It creates that region. Close that. That is the MIDI region playing, triggering the drum machine designer, the individual, see, as you can see, the individual pads. Super quick, super simple. Drag a drum beat into the into the quick sampler. Use the slice mode, create drum machine designer track, and it creates all the stuff for you, and you can go on and tweak it, edit, and the same thing here. So each slice, now you can edit. You can see the waveform, and you can edit the sound of each individual slice, the pitch, the filter, and all the stuff. And with this nice, beautiful user interface, very nice. Go ahead and use it. The next new plugin is the Sampler plugin. Actually, it's not a new plugin, it is the updated EXS24. Now it's called Sampler or here Multisample. If you open that up, and it looks completely different, completely new. The good news is it is similar to the quick sampler, so it's the same kind of user interface, so you get used to it right away. The not so good news is that EXS24 is no longer available. So you don't have, like in the legacy section here in the plugin menu, to open it up, so you won't find it. So it's a hard cut. Now you have to use the sampler. Most of the stuff is still there. A lot of stuff has shifted around. And this is only just a quick overview, run through what I can give you, because it's very deep, so we cannot do that in 5 minutes. So it takes like 2 or 3 hours just to get the basic concept. I explain all that stuff in the manual and also give like a comparison between the EXS24 and the new samplers. So you can see on spreadsheets, where on tables, where the different parameters and different controls have shifted or where the new location is now. Quick overview. So you have on top, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 modules. So you can select different modules to optimize what you see on the plugin window. The plugin window, first one is that now you can not only resize it, you can resize it vertically, because there are a lot of modules that you can view, so you can have more view available here. And you can see here on the right side now we have scroll bars, and even if you have enough space or a smaller screen, so you can scroll up and down, and even smaller ones inside some panes you can scroll. So please pay attention to these scroll bars to really make sure that you find the right controls that you're looking for. A shortcut is if you hold down the Option key and click on one of the modules, it acts like a solo button, so you can view only that specific module. Otherwise, you just click on it, on that yellow button, and you can add, hide, or show or hide that specific module. The EXS24 had like 2 different windows. You had the plugin windows, and there was a separate sampler instrument edit window. That now is everything included in that sampler window. So everything now is compact in one window. You don't have to open separate window here and there and manage all that stuff. So that is gone. But you have to manage the space, what you have available in that plugin window. For example, if you just add a sample, same thing, you can drag on it. You can see you can drag directly into that space, or if you drag over that area here, you have different drop zones, and you have the text explaining like the regular on the left side, and then optimized import drop zone per node, zone per file. And so you can have the different options you can explore. Let's just add one into it. One improvement is that you can see the waveform. So whatever zones, whatever samples you have up there in the mapping module, you click on it and you can see the waveform. And again, here are the same controls that I showed before in the quick sampler. And so that makes it very easy to learn, because you actually learn 2 plugins as one. Same thing with the synthesizer, the synth. So you have the pitch control, filter. You have actually 2 filter. You can blend it in serial or in parallel. Amp, the same modules, same controls. You have the modulation matrix, same components. So you have the source selection, target selection, and the VIA controller. And you can set the amount. Inverse, you can enable, disable, and if you have a lot of modulation matrix, I think it's up to 25, then you can have something like a filter button here, very convenient, plus, minus button, everything self-explanatory. In the synth, you have a details button, so you have additional controls. I explain all that in my book. And the modulator itself looks also similar like the one on the quick sampler. You have envelope generator and LFOs, and here you have the plus and minus, so you can add up to 5 envelopes and up to 4 LFOs. And the controls are pretty much the same that you had in the quick sampler. And as you can see, so it gets really uses a lot of space, so just get rid of the modulator so you have space for the other stuff. So in the mapping, pretty simple. That's where you have all the different zones organized in groups, and here you have 3 buttons that you can switch between the view with the keyboard. You can watch all your groups, or you can view all the zones. And in that one, you right click up here, you have all the different parameters that you can show or hide. For example, show all columns, and you see there's a lot of stuff to control. And as I said, I have some spreadsheets on in my book, so we have the comparison of the different controls and parameters to see which one is where or which one has moved from the EXS24 compared to the sampler. So it's a lot of stuff you have to get used to it to find the right parameters and the right controls. If you're new to the sampler, pretty simple because you learn a brand new interface, a very easily laid out interface. If you switch from EXS24, there are some growing pains because you have to change some habits and find the stuff that where you were used to before. Other controls here are similar. You have the same thing here, the gear button, initialize synth parameter, individual from the mapping, and different controls. And one thing you also have to get used to is the file management, because now whatever you save here and in the menu, it's not saved as a plugin setting, it is saved as a sampler instrument. The same thing if you go to the library window, you have plugin settings and sampler instruments separately here. So you have to make sure that you understand the difference between plugin setting and sampler instruments. That one, what you see here, I made some extra files, some dummy files to make sure to indicate what you see here, plugin settings and sampler instruments. So that's one you have to read up, because otherwise you really get lost and have no idea what is what, especially if you come, if you switch from EXS24. So that's just the quick overview. Other than that, as I said, it's very deep. Some stuff is very self-explanatory, but make sure that you read up on the details so you don't get too much frustration and really use it right away. And that's about it for the quick run-through of the new software instrument plugin, the sampler. The next new feature in 10.5 is a brand new plugin, a software instrument plugin called the Drum Synth. It is in the plugin menu here in Drum Synth. It is not a drum sampler or a drum machine. It is a synthesizer. You can play it polyphonically, but you can select only one sound at a time. Therefore, you can only play a kick drum or a snare or a hi-hat at a time. It sounds like a limitation, but I will show later how you can create still a full drum set and how to play it as a drum set. First, let's introduce the interface. Super simple. You have basically only 3 layers. You have 2 selectors. First one is you select the sound category. You have 4 categories: kick, snare, percussion, hi-hat, and cymbals. And for each sound category, you have sound modules. For example, here for the kick, you have 4 or 5 different kick sounds. For the snare, you have different snare sounds, and selecting percussion and so on, you get different modules for each category. And you can see here, each module has up to 8 different controls, and they change depending on what module you selected. And the name on the controls is pretty much self-explanatory. So if I select snare sound, so the controls are pretty self-explanatory: pitch, tone, body, snap. Very flexible, very fast to find the right sound. But how about if you want to create a whole drum set, so you don't want to just play the kick or the snare? Very simple. For that, you create multiple tracks. So instead of one track with one sound, so let me create 4 instrument tracks, and now for each one you select a different sound. Let's see, drum, kick, snare, hi-hat, and let's do tom. And you can see all of the tracks, each one has an individual software instrument plugin loaded. So because you have a limitation of 1000 tracks, so that's not a problem anymore. So now you select the different sound for each track. Track 1 is a kick. For the track 2, you just select the snare sound. For track, select the hi-hat, and here we get it, tom. But still the limitation, so you can play only the instrument when you select the track. In order to play a whole drum set, so with one keyboard you have the C and the D and the F sharp, what you do is you create a summing stack. So you select all 4 tracks, go to right-click on it, create track stack, and here the summing stack, create summing stack, and so you have now one. You can see that's the main track is an aux channel strip, and all the 4 tracks are routed into that aux track. But the kicker is that you can select that main track, and when you play that, even if it's an aux channel strip, all the MIDI information that comes in here, all the MIDI messages are routed to these 4 tracks. However, it's not really usable because right now you play all the kick, snare, hi-hat, everything at the same time. So here's the trick. So you have to select each individual track of that summing stack and go to the track inspector, and here you have a selection called key limit. So right now it accepts input notes of C-2 all the way to C8. So you select each track and you limit to receiving MIDI note messages only for a single note or a note range, depending on what you want to do. So for this example, so I select kick, and here select C1. For the snare, I select D1, hi-hat, F sharp 1, and for the tom, F1. So if you select a single track, I play C1, I hear the kick, and you can see C1 is the incoming MIDI message. If I play a D, it doesn't play because it only accepts the C1. If it receives C1, it plays the kick. Same thing for the snare. If I play C1, as you can see here, I play the keyboard, you hear nothing. But if I play D, then it plays that note. So that means each single track only receives or accepts only one MIDI message. Now, if you select the main track, then if I play C1, it goes through, only the kick receives that signal, because MIDI input message C1 is not accepted by track 2, 3, or 4. But if I play, you can see C1, if I play C2, D1, then the snare reacts. Same thing if I play F sharp, the hi-hat track reacts. If I play tom, that one reacts. So one summing stack, and you can create as many tracks as you want, so you have everything playable at once with your keyboard. So now if you play groove, and let's see, it's almost impossible with that latency, but as you can see, you have one media region, and that triggers all the tracks, individual tracks in that summing stack. And you can see also here, it's a MIDI region. You have all the different MIDI information, all the different MIDI notes placed on the main track of the summing stack, triggering all the individual tracks. So this way you can create your drum synth, your whole drum set, with individual drum kit pieces included in that summing stack. And not only that, you can actually save that. So if you open the library browser, you can save that summing stack and then later can open it up in any other projects. So if I create an empty software instrument track, I go to my user patch. I saved patch before, one of those drum sets, and select that. And here is my complete set. So you can create your own drum sets with individual software instrument tracks. Each one contains one drum synth plugin, and this way you can play your individual drum set. The next new feature in Logic 10.5 is a new audio effects plugin called the Remix Effects. Actually, it's not a new plugin because that was already available in GarageBand iOS, and now it's available also in Logic. The audio effects is located in the plugin menu under Multi-Effects and here Remix Effects. And that's how it looks like. You have a total of 7 effects. The main difference here is compared to reverb and delay that this is a performance effects. Unlike reverb, where you set the reverb and then you play back your track and you have a reverb or a delay, here that plugin you have actually the window open and you perform live, like DJ or electronic live performance. Let's go over the various effects. You have a total of 7. It's the filter effect. You have the gator. You have the reverse, the scratch effect, the stop effects, the downsampler, and the repeater. There are only a few controls and a few things you have to be aware of. One button here, that is the settings button. If you click on that, you will see a new control bar where you have various settings for some of the effects that you can change even during the performance. Otherwise, the controls are pretty simple. On the left and the right side, you have an XY pad. On the filter here on the left side, the cutoff is when you move horizontally. That means if you move to the right, you have a high-pass filter. If you move to the left, you have a low-pass filter. And the higher you move on the x-axis, you increase the resonance. Very simple to use. And if you release the mouse, it goes back to normal. If you want to keep the effects, you can click the lock button. And whatever you press, so now I don't hold the mouse key, it keeps on until you press that again or you press the reset button. With a repeater, same thing. You have different segments. If you move vertically, the higher you go, the more wet effects you have, and the lower you have more the regular, the direct signal, and the more you move to the right, the higher the repetition rate is. And if you enable the settings button, you have different values you can change here. Same thing with the filter, you can change between fat and 2 different classic and fat mode. The other effects in the center are similar. This is a pad you can only move up and down to have the gate rate. Here you have the value, the musical value for the gate. And you can add some noise to it. That's without the noise. Width. And you have the downsampler. 2 buttons, extreme and classic mode. And if you click on any of these 3 buttons here, you will see various musical rates. That is, let me stop that for a moment. So you can select which rate that has. That means how fast it goes backwards, how fast it scratches the mode, or how fast it stops when you click that button here. Please be aware that you have two fields here. So you can click on the left and on the right side of the button. And as you can see up here, you can pre-select what the left or the right button, what value they will have. Same thing, see if I click here and you see that red frame around, and then you can set that specific rate. And you can do that during the live performance. If I play that. Okay, that sums it up about my coverage of the new Logic Pro 10 update 10.5. There's a lot to explore, to try out, and to incorporate into your workflow. For more detailed explanations of all the new features and changes that I didn't have time for in this video, please check out my new book, Logic Pro 10, What's New in 10.5, with information that you won't find anywhere else. Don't forget to read my free Logic and Pro Tools tutorials and check out the books in my graphically enhanced manual series. By the way, on Apple's iBook Store, you can download free samples of all my books in the special interactive multi-touch iBooks version, the best way to learn a software application. All the links are available on my website, dingdingmusic.com.